The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Galactic Confederation's flagship. Ellen Wright had been in space for 6 months now, but she still couldn't get used to seeing unfamiliar constellations. The Earthwoman pressed her hand against the cool glass and sighed. She was a long way from home. "Captain Wright, they're ready for you in the meeting room," said a voice behind her. Ellen turned to see Frank Collins, her second in command. His usually cheerful face looked serious today. "How many representatives came?" she asked, straightening her blue uniform jacket. "All 7 surviving council races," Frank replied. "This is big, Ellen. They've never all gathered in one place before." Ellen nodded and took a deep breath. 6 months ago, she had been a simple diplomat representing Earth in minor trade negotiations. Now she stood at the center of a galactic crisis. The timing couldn't be worse. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. They were babies in the galactic community, still learning the basics of interstellar politics. The pair walked silently through the curved hallways of the massive ship. Aliens of different shapes and sizes moved past them, some walking on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some floated in personal gravity bubbles. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. "I hate when they do that," Frank whispered. "They're curious," Ellen replied. "Most of them have never seen a human before." The doors to the main conference room slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, 7 different alien species sat around a large round table. The space was filled with different smells and sounds, some pleasant, others decidedly not. Ambassador Zeltor rose from his seat. His blue skin glowed softly in the dim light, and the feathers around his neck puffed up in a formal greeting. "Captain." "Right, Lieutenant Collins, thank you for coming," he said, his words translated through the small device in Ellen's ear. "Please sit." Ellen took her seat, feeling the weight of 14 alien eyes watching her every move. Some had more than 2 eyes, of course. "The situation has grown worse," began Hicknar, the representative of the insect-like Vraxians. Her mandibles clicked nervously as she spoke. "The Dravax Empire has taken 3 more systems in the Outer Rim. Our forecasts predict they will reach Confederation core worlds within 2 years." Projected images appeared above the table, planets burning, refugee ships fleeing, and strange crystal ships moving in perfect formation through the wreckage. "The war has lasted 300 years, said Kell, the reptilian ambassador. His scaled skin looked dry under the harsh lights. "We have lost over 200 member species to extinction. Countless worlds have been reduced to ash." Ellen studied the images carefully. "Your military technology seems more advanced than theirs. Why can't you stop them?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The ambassadors looked at each other, clearly reluctant to speak. "Our technology is indeed superior, Ambassador," Zeltor finally said. "But the Dravax, they follow no rules of war." Frank leaned forward. "What do you mean by rules?" The hologram changed to show battle footage. Ellen watched as Confederation ships moved in organized formations, while Dravax vessels attacked from unexpected angles, sacrificing their own ships to break enemy lines. "Civilized warfare follows ancient codes," explained Kell. "Proper declarations, honorable engagement, treatment of prisoners. The Dravax ignore these traditions. They use unconventional tactics." Ellen and Frank exchanged a quick glance. To human eyes, the Confederation forces looked rigid and predictable, while the Dravax simply looked efficient. "We have tried everything within the boundaries of civilized conflict," said Hicknar. "Nothing works. They advance relentlessly." "What does this have to do with Earth?" Ellen asked directly. "We're not even full members of the Confederation yet. Our military consists of a few dozen ships, mostly exploration vessels with minimal weapons." Ambassador Zeltor's feathers drooped slightly. "We have been monitoring your species since before you achieved spaceflight. Your history is unusual." The hologram shifted again, now showing scenes from human history. Ancient battles, world wars, modern conflicts. Ellen felt her face grow, hot with embarrassment. Humanity's violent past was not something she was proud of. Your species has fought more wars against itself than most civilizations fight against outside threats, Zeltor continued. You have developed warfare in ways that are creative. You mean brutal? Ellen said quietly. Different, corrected Kel. You fight to win, not to follow tradition. That is what we need now. Ellen stood up and walked around the table, studying the faces of each ambassador. Let me understand this correctly. You want humans, the newest and least developed species in the Confederation, to help you fight a war you've been losing for 3 centuries? Yes, said all 7 ambassadors almost in unison. Why now? Frank asked. Why not approach us years ago? Ambassador Zeltor's skin pulsed with changing colors, a sign of strong emotion. Because we were afraid. Your history shows great capacity for violence, but also remarkable ability to rebuild and make peace afterward. We needed to be sure you had matured enough to handle this responsibility. And have we? Ellen asked. We hope so, replied Zeltor, because we have run out of options. Ellen turned to look out the window at the unfamiliar stars. Earth had been at peace for decades. Their small fleet was designed for exploration, not war. What these aliens were asking would change humanity's path forever. If we agree to help, you, she said slowly, we do it our way. No restrictions on tactics or strategies. We fight to win. The ambassadors looked at each other nervously. Some of our methods may shock you, Frank added. Humans don't fight with honor. We fight for survival. After a long silence, Ambassador Zeltor spoke. We accept your terms. Will you help us? Ellen thought about Earth, so far away and vulnerable. If the Confederation fell, how long would it be before the Dravaks found her homeworld? I will take your request to our leaders, she said finally. But I should warn you, the moment humans enter this war, everything will change, for better or worse. As Ellen and Frank left the conference room, Frank whispered, Do you think Earth will agree to this? Ellen looked at her friend, her eyes hard with determination. The Dravaks destroyed 200 species, Frank. 200 civilizations gone forever. What do you think? The next day, Ellen sent a message to Earth that would change the fate of the galaxy. Request immediate military consultation. Confederation, facing extinction. Human intervention requested. Time is critical. What no one in the room realized was that humans had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars. They had always suspected they weren't alone, and they had always known that not everything out there would be friendly. The moment humans entered the war was approaching, and when it came, victory would be instant, but the galaxy would never be the same. The message from Ellen Wright reached Earth in 3 days. Back home, the United Earth Council gathered in their underground chamber beneath the old city of Geneva. 50 representatives from all regions of Earth sat in a half-circle, facing the main display screen. The mood was tense as they waited for the briefing to begin. General Abigail Pierce stood at the center of the room. Her gray hair was cut short, and her uniform looked crisp despite the early hour. She had fought in the last war on Earth 20 years ago. Now at 65, she thought her fighting days were behind her. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady. 3 days ago, we received an urgent message from Captain Wright. The Galactic Confederation has formally requested our military assistance against the Dravaks Empire. Whispers filled the chamber. Many representatives looked shocked. But our fleet is tiny, said Counselor William Grant from North America. We have only 42 warships. The Confederation must have thousands. 7,312 to be exact, Abigail replied. But numbers aren't everything. She pressed a button on her tablet, and the large screen lit up with battle footage. The council members watched as Confederation ships moved in perfect formations against the Dravaks. The alien vessels followed traditional patterns, firing at specific ranges, retreating in organized ways. This is how the Confederation has fought for 300 years, Abigail explained. And this is why they're losing. She showed more footage. The Dravak ships broke formation, sacrificed smaller vessels to draw fire, and attacked from unexpected angles. The Confederation fights with honor and tradition, Abigail continued. The Dravaks fight to win. But neither side fights like humans do. Counselor Maya Patel from South Asia leaned forward. What do you mean? Abigail's face hardened. The Confederation has rules of war that go back thousands of years. Proper declarations, specific formations, codes of honor. The Dravaks break some of these rules but still follow others. Humans. She paused. We threw out the rulebook centuries ago. Are you suggesting we help them? Asked Counselor Luis Alvarez from South America. These aliens we barely know? I'm suggesting we have no choice, Abigail replied. Intelligence reports from the Confederation show the Dravaks Empire expanding rapidly. If they defeat the Confederation, how long before they find Earth? We would stand alone against an enemy that has destroyed hundreds of civilizations. The room fell silent as the representatives considered her words. What exactly are the Confederation asking for? Counselor Sophia Chan asked. Our ships? Our soldiers? They want our strategies, Abigail explained. Our way of thinking. They've studied our history, our wars. They believe our approach to combat might turn the tide. They want us because we're good at killing, Counselor Grant said flatly. Not exactly flattering. They want us because we're survivors, Abigail corrected. Because when faced with extinction, humans fight without limits. The main doors opened and President Rebecca Howard entered the chamber. Everyone stood as she walked to the center of the room to stand beside General Pierce. I've reviewed all the information, the President said. This isn't a decision to make lightly. If we help the Confederation, we permanently change humanity's path in the galaxy. We'll no longer be simple explorers and traders, we'll be warriors again. And if we refuse? Asked Counselor Patel. Then we watch from the sidelines as a hostile force destroys our only allies in space, President Howard replied. And we hope they never find us. The Council debated for hours. Some argued for caution, others for immediate action. Finally, President Howard called for a vote. All in favor of providing military assistance to the Galactic Confederation, raise your hands. 47. Hands went up. Only 3 remained down. The motion passes, President Howard announced. General Pierce, you have authority to mobilize our fleet and coordinate with Captain Wright. God help us all. 3 weeks later, Ellen Wright stood in a massive hangar on the Confederation's central military base. Around her, dozens of human ships were landing. They looked small and primitive compared to the elegant Confederation vessels, but Ellen knew appearances could be deceiving. Frank Collins walked up beside her, watching as human soldiers and officers filed out of the ships. I never thought I'd see this day, he said quietly. Humans spreading across the stars as warriors, not explorers. We're still explorers, Ellen replied. But sometimes exploration means fighting for your right to exist. A tall woman approached them. General Abigail Pierce had arrived personally to lead the human forces. Captain Wright, Lieutenant Collins. She greeted them with a firm handshake. Your reports were excellent. You've given us a good foundation to work with. Thank you, General, Ellen replied. The Confederation High Command is eager to meet with you. Abigail smiled thinly. I'm sure they are. But first I want to see their ships, their weapons, their training facilities. I need to understand exactly what we're working with. The 3 humans walked through the base observing alien technology and soldiers. Everywhere they went, the Confederation troops stopped to stare at them. Word had spread quickly that humans had arrived to help turn the tide of the war. In the main command center, they met Supreme Commander Vexcal of the Confederation forces. The alien was tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors based on his mood. Right now, it was a deep blue, the color of worry. General Pierce, he said, bowing slightly, I welcome you and your warriors to our base. The Confederation is grateful for Earth's assistance. Abigail didn't bow back. Instead, she walked straight to the tactical display showing the current positions of Confederation and Dravaks forces. Your formations are too predictable, she said bluntly. You maintain perfect defensive lines even when breaking formation would save more ships. The alien commander's skin flickered to purple. Surprise or possibly offense. Our battle doctrines have been refined over thousands of years, he replied stiffly. And you've been losing for 300 of those years, Abigail countered. It's time for a new approach. She turned to face the commander directly. The Dravaks expect you to fight a certain way. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. What do you propose? Asked Vexcal. Abigail smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. We hit them where they least expect it, with tactics they can't predict, using weapons they don't understand. We break every rule of engagement they know. The alien's skin darkened. That would not be honorable. Honor doesn't win wars, Abigail said firmly. Survival does. Your people face extinction. Are you willing to die with honor, or live by breaking a few rules? The command center fell silent as everyone waited for the Supreme Commander's response. Finally, his skin shifted to a deep green, the color of determination. Teach us, he said simply, and so it began. The moment humans entered the war was no longer approaching. It had arrived, and soon, the Dravaks' empire would learn just how terrible humans could be when fighting for survival, their own and their allies. For 6 weeks, the humans worked with the Confederation forces. It was not easy. Centuries of tradition were hard to break. The aliens watched in shock as General Pierce tore apart their carefully created battle plans and replaced them with strategies that seemed chaotic and unpredictable. In the main training hall, Frank Collins worked with a group of Kotari pilots. The aliens had 4 arms and excellent reflexes, but they flew their ships in the same patterns every time. No, Frank said, stopping the simulation again. You're still flying in formation. Break it up, be unpredictable. The lead pilot, Karen, flexed her forearms in frustration. But proper formation maximizes our defensive capabilities. It also makes you perfectly predictable, Frank countered. The Dravaks know exactly where each ship will be at all times. That's why they can destroy you so easily. He started the simulation again. This time I want chaos. Complete chaos. No formations. Each pilot makes their own decisions based on the situation. The aliens looked at each other nervously but followed his instructions. The simulation ended with a victory for the first time. See? Frank said with a smile. Unpredictability is your greatest weapon. Elsewhere on the base, Ellen Wright worked with the communication teams. The Confederation forces used standard codes and frequencies that the Dravaks had long ago cracked. Ellen introduced them to the concept of constantly changing encryption and random frequency jumping. But how will our own forces know which frequencies to use? Asked the communications officer, a tentacled alien named Grell. That's the beauty of it, Ellen explained. We create a pattern that only our side knows. It looks random to the enemy, but our forces can predict the next frequency. In the weapons development section, human engineers worked alongside alien scientists. The Confederation had powerful weapons but used them in predictable ways. Olivia Stone, Earth's top weapons designer, had other ideas. Your energy cannons are impressive, she told the alien engineers, but you always fire them directly at enemy ships. What if we modified them to create area effect weapons? You mean weapons that damage multiple targets? Asked Chief Engineer Zul. That would be less precise. Exactly, Olivia replied. Less precise but more devastating. Sometimes quantity has a quality all its own. The biggest challenge was in the command center. General Pierce spent long hours with Supreme Commander Vexcal, teaching him to think like a human strategist. The key is deception, she explained. Make the enemy believe you're doing one thing while you're actually doing another. Vexcal's skin turned a confused yellow. But that is dishonorable. Is it more honorable to let your people die? Abigail asked sharply. War isn't about honor. It's about winning. Slowly, the alien commander began to understand. His skin shifted to a thoughtful blue as he studied the new battle plans. The Dravaks will not expect this, he admitted. They've fought us for 300 years. They know our ways. But they don't know ours, Abigail said with a grim smile. After 6 weeks of intense preparation, The combined human Confederation fleet was ready. 42 human ships joined over 7,000 Confederation vessels. The human ships were smaller, less advanced, but they carried something the Confederation had never had before: unpredictability. The War Council met one final time before the first attack. Representatives from all Confederation species gathered around the strategic display. General Pierce stood at the center outlining the plan. "The Dravax have taken the Nero system," she explained. "They expect us to attack from the front, following standard Confederation doctrine. Instead, we'll split our forces." She pointed to different sections of the map. "Small fast attack groups will hit their supply lines here, here, and here. Meanwhile, our main fleet will appear to prepare for a conventional attack." "But our main fleet will not attack conventionally?" asked K-Ren, who had become one of the strongest supporters of the human tactics. "No," Abigail confirmed. "When the Dravax move to counter our main fleet, we'll jump in behind their lines with our reserve forces. They'll be caught between two fires with their supply lines cut." Supreme Commander Vexcal's skin had turned a deep purple, the color of resolve. "It is unlike anything we have ever attempted," he said, "but I believe it will work." Ellen and Frank stood at the back of the room, watching as the alien commanders slowly accepted the human battle plan. "Do you think it will work?" Frank whispered. Ellen nodded. "The Dravax have never faced humans before. They have no idea what's coming." The next day, the fleet departed. Human officers were stationed on key Confederation ships, while Confederation officers joined the human vessels. Together, they would implement the new strategies. On the bridge of the human flagship Defiance, General Pierce stood with Supreme Commander Vexcal. The view screen showed the vast fleet as it prepared to enter faster than light travel. "In 300 years of war, the Confederation has never launched a surprise attack," Vexcal noted. "It was considered uncivilized. Sometimes civilization must be set aside to ensure survival," Abigail replied. "My ancestors learned that lesson the hard way." "Your species has fought many wars," the alien commander observed. "Does it ever get easier?" Abigail's face grew solemn. "No. War is always terrible. That's why we try to end it as quickly as possible. Not with honor, but with overwhelming force." The fleet reached its jump point. Thousands of ships prepared to leap across space toward the Dravax-held system. "All ships report ready," announced the communications officer. Abigail and Vexcal exchanged a look. In that moment, two vastly different military traditions met and found common ground: the desire to protect their people. "Give the order, Abigail," said Vexcal's skin rippled with colors as he spoke. "All ships, commence Operation Thunderbolt." The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, carrying with it the first truly human battle plan to be used in the 300-year war. The Dravax Empire had grown complacent fighting the predictable Confederation. They had no idea that everything was about to change. As the Defiance jumped to light speed, Frank turned to Ellen on the secondary command deck. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked quietly. "Teaching aliens how to fight like humans?" Ellen watched the stars streak past on the view screen. "We're teaching them how to survive," she replied. "The rest is up to them." In the darkness of space, the combined fleet raced toward its target. The first test of human warfare against the Dravax Empire was about to begin. And if General Pierce was right, the moment humans entered the war, victory would be instant. The Dravax battle fleet orbited the conquered planet of Neros III. 100 crystal ships arranged in perfect defensive formation, their weapons charged and ready. Fleet Commander Kravex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. His hard exoskeleton gleamed under the bright lights as he studied the tactical display. "Status report," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with each word. "All systems normal, Commander," reported his second-in-command. "Our scouts report no Confederation activity in nearby sectors." Kravex made a satisfied sound. For 300 years, the Dravax Empire had fought the Galactic Confederation. For 300 years, they had slowly pushed forward, conquering system after system. The Confederation was predictable, fighting according to ancient codes of war that the Dravax had long ago memorized. The Confederation will attempt to retake this system, Kravek stated confidently. They will approach from the main trade route, as they always do. They will announce their presence and challenge us to honorable combat. His officers nodded in agreement. The routine was familiar. The Confederation would attack, the Dravax would counter using their knowledge of Confederation tactics, and another system would remain firmly in Dravax control. What they didn't know was that everything had changed. At the edge of the system, tiny probes appeared. Human-designed, they were nearly invisible to Dravax sensors. The probes scanned the Dravax fleet, mapping their positions and defenses. The information flowed back to the waiting human Confederation fleet. On the bridge of the Defiance, General Pierce studied the incoming data. 100 ships in standard Dravax formation, she noted. Just as we expected. Supreme Commander Vexical's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. They are arranged for a frontal assault. They expect us to attack directly. Abigail smiled. Then let's disappoint them. Commence Phase 1. Throughout the combined fleet, human, officers relayed new orders. Ships that had trained for weeks under human guidance moved into position. The fleet split into 5 groups, each with a specific role to play. Back in the Nero system, a Dravax patrol ship detected unusual activity. "Commander," called the sensor officer on the Eternal Glory, "we're detecting multiple small ships entering the system from Vector 47. Kravex tilted his head. "Vector 47? That's not the main trade route. The Confederation always attacks from the main route." "These ships are moving erratically," the officer continued. "They do not maintain formation. Our computers cannot identify the pattern." For the first time in his long career, Kravex felt uncertain. This was not how the Confederation fought. "Bring the fleet to full alert," he ordered. "Maintain defensive formation." Just then, another report came in. "Commander, Supply Outpost 6 is under attack. Multiple small vessels striking from different angles." Before Kravex could respond, more reports flooded in. "Outpost 3 under attack. Outpost 12. Reporting heavy damage. Communications Relay Station 7 destroyed." Kravex stared at the tactical display in confusion. The attacks were coming from everywhere at once. Small, fast ships struck critical infrastructure and disappeared before the Dravax could respond. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Where is the main Confederation fleet?" As if in answer to his question, a massive fleet appeared at the edge of the system. 7,000 Confederation ships in traditional battle formation, approaching slowly from the main trade route. "There," Kravex said with relief. "The main attack, just as expected. Maintain formation. Prepare to engage when they come within range." His officers moved to obey, but the sense of certainty had vanished. Something was wrong. The Confederation never used small strike teams. They never attacked supply lines or communication relays. They always engaged the main fleet directly. On the Defiance, Abigail watched as the Dravax fleet held position, waiting for the decoy fleet to approach. "They've taken the bait," she said. "They're focused on our decoy force. Time for Phase 2. Behind the Dravax fleet, space rippled as a third force emerged from faster-than-light travel. Led by human ships and commanded by Ellen Wright, this force had jumped to a position directly behind the enemy. Ellen stood on the bridge of her ship, the Courage. Frank Collins stood beside her as tactical officer. "All ships report ready," Frank announced. "We have achieved complete surprise." Ellen nodded. "Begin the attack. All ships, fire at will." For the first time in the 300-year war, Confederation ships attacked without formal challenge, without honorable declarations. They struck from behind, targeting engines and weapon systems with precise fire. On the Eternal Glory, chaos erupted as alarms blared. "We're under attack from behind," shouted the tactical officer. 50 ships. They've disabled the rear guard." Kravex spun around. "Impossible. How did they get behind us?" "Our formation is breaking," reported another officer. "Ships are requesting permission to reposition." The Dravax commander faced an impossible situation. The main Confederation fleet approached from the front. A smaller force attacked from behind. Supply lines were cut. Communications were disrupted. Nothing made sense. "Break formation," he finally ordered. "All ships, engage the rear attackers." But, as the Dravax ships turned to face the new threat, the main Confederation fleet accelerated suddenly. Instead of the slow, dignified approach required by tradition, they surged forward at maximum speed. Supreme Commander Vexacal stood on the bridge of the lead Confederation ship, his skin glowing bright red with excitement. "The enemy is confused," he reported to General Pierce over the comm. "They have broken formation for the first time in recorded history." "Perfect," Abigail replied. "Launch the fighter squadrons. Have them target the flagship's command systems." Thousands of small fighters poured from the Confederation carriers. Led by Qatari pilots trained by Frank Collins, they flew in unpredictable patterns, dodging Dravax defenses with ease. On the Eternal Glory, Kravex watched in horror as his carefully arranged fleet fell into disarray. "What is happening?" he demanded. "The Confederation has never fought like this." His second-in-command approached cautiously. "Commander, we've intercepted communications. There are new voices giving orders. They speak a language our translators barely recognize." "A new species?" Kravex's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. "The Confederation has found new allies?" The ship shook as multiple impacts struck the hull. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency lighting. "Commander," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy." "Put it through," Kravex ordered. A human face appeared on the screen. General Abigail Pierce looked at the Dravax commander with steady eyes. "This is General Pierce of Earth. Your fleet is surrounded. Your supply lines are cut. Your communications are jammed. Surrender now, or be destroyed." Kravex stared at the strange alien. "Earth? I know no such world." "You will," Abigail replied. "The Confederation fights with honor. Humans fight to win. Surrender now." For the first time in 300 years, a Dravax fleet commander considered surrender. Around his ship, the battle raged. His perfect formation had dissolved into chaos. His officers looked to him for guidance, but he had none to give. The moment humans entered the war, everything changed. And for the Dravax Empire, the change was devastating. News of the victory at Nero spread quickly through the Confederation. For the first time in 300 years, a major Dravax fleet had been defeated. Not just defeated, crushed completely. 97 Dravax ships destroyed or captured. 3 escaped to carry word back to their empire. The Confederation lost only 12 vessels. 2 weeks later, representatives from all Confederation species gathered on their capital world. The great meeting hall buzzed with excited voices. Screens showed images from the battle, focusing on the human ships that had led the attack. Ellen Wright and Frank Collins stood awkwardly near the main platform. They weren't used to so much attention. Frank pulled at the collar of his formal uniform. "Everyone keeps staring at us," he whispered. "They've never seen a victory like this before," Ellen replied quietly. 300 years of losing, and suddenly everything changes. General Pierce entered the hall with Supreme Commander Vexacal. The room fell silent as they walked to the central platform. Vexacal's skin glowed with a vibrant mixture of colors, pride, excitement, and relief, all visible in the shifting patterns. "Members of the Confederation," Vexacal began, his voice carrying through the vast space. "For 3 centuries, we have fought a defensive war against the Dravax Empire. For 3 centuries, we have watched our worlds fall one by one. Today, everything has changed." The crowd murmured in agreement. Many had already seen the battle reports. Some had even watched live feeds from the combat zone. "The victory at Neros was just the beginning," Vexacal continued. "In the 2 weeks since that battle, our forces have liberated 6 more systems. The Dravax are retreating on all fronts." Cheers erupted throughout the hall. Ellen watched as aliens of different species embraced each other. Some were weeping in their own unique ways. This change in our fortunes comes from our new allies, Vexcal said, gesturing to General Pierce. The humans of Earth have shown us a new way to fight, a way to win. Abigail stepped forward. Unlike Vexcal, she did not look entirely happy. The Confederation has fought honorably for centuries, she said. I respect that. But honor doesn't always win wars. Sometimes you need to be unpredictable. Sometimes you need to break the rules. The hall grew quiet again. Many of the aliens looked uncomfortable. Breaking the ancient codes of warfare still felt wrong to them, even with victory. What the humans have taught us is not just how to fight, Vexcal added quickly. They have taught us how to adapt, how to change, how to survive. In the back of the hall, a small group of Dravak's prisoners watched the proceedings. They had been captured during the battle at Neros, including Fleet Commander Kravex himself. Their mandibles clicked nervously as they listened. The question now, Abigail continued, is what comes next. We've shown the Dravaks that they can be defeated. We've changed the course of the war. But where do we go from here? She looked out at the assembled representatives. Do we push forward, destroying the Dravaks completely, or do we use this opportunity to seek peace? The hall erupted in debate. Many voices called for revenge, for pushing the offensive until the Dravak's empire was destroyed completely. Others urged caution, suggesting that peace might finally be possible. Supreme Commander Vexcal raised his forearms for silence. When the room quieted, he turned to Kravex. Fleet Commander, approach the platform. The Dravak's commander walked forward slowly, his guard escorts close behind. He stood before Vexcal and General Pierce, his hard exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. You have seen what humans can do, Vexcal said to him. You have experienced their way of war. Tell your leaders what you have witnessed here. Kravex's mandibles clicked rapidly as he considered his words. The Dravak's empire has fought the Confederation for 300 years. We know your ways. We know your tactics. But these humans... He turned to look at Abigail. They fight like nothing we have ever seen. They do not follow the ancient codes. They do not seek honor in battle. They seek only victory. And what would your empire do faced with such an enemy? Abigail asked. The Dravak's commander stared at her with his compound eyes. The empire would adapt or die, but adaptation takes time. Time you may not give us. Ellen stepped forward from her position near the platform. Commander Kravex, if your empire sued for peace now, would your leaders honor such an agreement? The Dravaks seemed surprised by the question. The empire has never known defeat. We have never sought peace. But... He paused, mandibles working. Slowly. If the alternative is destruction, yes. I believe they would honor a peace treaty. Ellen turned to address the hall. For 300 years, both sides have fought according to certain rules. Both sides understood the game. Now the game has changed. The Dravaks can adapt or they can be destroyed. If peace is possible, shouldn't we try? The room fell silent as her words sank in. Vexcal's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. The human speaks wisely, he said finally. Victory is within our grasp. But what comes after victory? More war? More death? Or a chance for real peace? In the weeks that followed, the combined human Confederation fleet continued to push the Dravaks back. System after system was liberated. The ancient empire found itself on the defensive for the first time in centuries. Their traditional tactics failed against the unpredictable human strategies. 1 month after the Battle of Neros, the unthinkable happened. The Dravak's emperor sent a formal request for peace talks. On a neutral space station at the edge of contested space, representatives from Earth, the Confederation, and the Dravak's empire gathered. Ellen and Frank watched nervously as General Pierce and Supreme Commander Vexcal met with the Dravak's high command. Do you think it will work? Frank asked quietly. Real peace after 300 years of war? I don't know, Ellen admitted, but we've shown them that the alternative is worse. Inside the meeting chamber, the Dravak's emperor himself faced General Pierce. The massive insectoid alien towered over the human woman, but his posture was no longer threatening. Your species has changed everything, the Emperor said, his translated voice echoing in the chamber. In a few short weeks you have accomplished what the Confederation could not in centuries. We fight differently, Abigail replied simply. We fight to end wars, not to prolong them. And now you offer peace when you could destroy us, the Emperor noted. Why? Because the goal was never destruction, Abigail said. The goal was survival. For the Confederation, for Earth, and yes, even for the Dravax. There's been enough death in this war. The Emperor's compound eyes studied her for a long moment. Then, in a gesture unprecedented in Dravax history, he lowered his body in a bow. The moment humans entered the war, our defeat was instant, he said. But perhaps from defeat can come something new, something better. As the peace treaty was signed, Ellen looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Humanity had changed the Goddam galaxy forever. Not just by bringing new ways of war, but by showing that even the oldest conflicts could end. The moment humans entered the war, victory was instant. But the real victory wasn't just defeating an enemy. It was creating the possibility for peace.